I'm Nancy Spurlock, and this is how art saved my life. So when I, look at my clothes, show me you're an artist without telling me you're an artist. When I had cancer, I found out kind of in a very interesting way, and that's the only time I'm going to say that word. So what happened was, I'm just going to tell you the story, and then you'll understand why I created this channel and what I'm about. 2015, there was a power outage. And during that power outage, I thought, what am I gonna do? I'm waiting for the power to come back on. And I did a self-breast exam, thank God. So I found a lump just here. And it was very shocking because it wasn't like what you hear, oh, it's a rock, it's this, it's that. And when you think rock, they tell you, oh, a pea-sized rock. Well, it was definitely a rock, but what I found was like as though I fell into a riverbed and absorbed a sharp, jagged, long rock. And I thought, and then the power came on and I was like, okay, the power's back on. So, but it started nagging me. I thought, what is that? That is not normal. And I've had kids, I have 2 children, adult children. I had nursed them. My hands had been in that area a lot in my life, and I'd never felt anything like that. So I thought, I gotta do something about it. I go to the doctor, and my general practitioner, his wife had passed away of cancer. Oh, I said it, no more. His wife had passed away of the same kind. And he said, you really need to go see, get a mammogram. So he immediately sent me. And I got it, and I was scared, and they're like, no. And then they did an ultrasound, and they're like, we're not seeing anything. And the doctor came in, who I'm friends with now. Let me just preface that. And she had her hands in her jacket, and she said, I'm not seeing anything on my films. And it took this strength inside me, and I said, you take your hands out of your pockets, and you get over here and feel this thing. I'm paying your salary. And I pulled a real, kind of fear move is what I would call it. But at the time I knew something was wrong. And she came over, and the second she saw it though, I knew by the look on her face that I was in deep trouble. So she immediately connected me with a surgeon. And I went to see the surgeon, and the surgeon felt it. She did another ultrasound. So that's 2 ultrasounds, a mammogram. And she said, it doesn't feel right, but it's not showing up. Come back in 6 months. So that was July of 2015. And this is all important for the whole story, so hang in there. So July of 2015, and then in December 18th or so, I went to my parents' house. They lived 4 hours away. They gave me an early Christmas present, and one of the gifts was a 2 canvases and a little paint set. I mean little. And it was just kind of fun. And so I went back home to St. Louis, where I was living at the time, and I just sat it on my bed, and I didn't do anything with it. And that night I went to bed, and I had a dream. Now, granted, I had seen what I dreamt about actually on Facebook. It was an image of a woman on Facebook when she was in like a calico kind of, almost like a Little House on the Prairie dress. And her hair was billowing in the wind, but in my dream, she was nude. She was staring at the moon. You saw her backside. Her hair was curly. Right now I've straightened my hair, but otherwise I have naturally kind of a little bit of curl in my hair. And this area was very prominent, and the moon was shining on it in my dream. And it was exactly where I'd found that. So I thought, well, that's weird. And then I dreamt that dream for 5 nights. And on the 5th night, I sat up in bed. Now, let me explain this. When you sit up in bed, there's a motion of getting up. My sat up in bed on that night was like someone pushed me out of bed. And I sat up and I kind of like halted. And I said, okay, I'll paint you. And I'd never painted anything really. I mean, I had an art class. I was in high school. At this time, I was 49 years old. So I thought, okay, so the next day I got out that kit and I opened one of those 16 by 20 canvases and I did this painting of this woman that I saw, and it was in black and white. I didn't know how to paint color. I had always done photography. That was kind of my art, or jewelry. I was a jeweler. That's my education. And I painted her. And I didn't really, it was okay. But I went to work, and where I was working, there was a guy who was an artist, and he was like, oh, do this to it and make it come out. And I was like, okay. So I went home that night and I finished it and I hung it next to my bed. I thought, well, that was so much fun. I just had such a great time doing it. And I'd never done art like that. And what's funny is my whole family are artists. They're all artists. So I had just never done that, because in my mind, when I would draw a stick figure, everybody's like, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure. Guess what? I can't either, but I could paint your whole face. So anyway, I hung it on the bed, next to the bed. And then come January 12th, 2016, that was going to be my follow-up appointment to the 6-month appointment. And this is where art saved my life. So just before then, on January 1st, the second canvas I painted was Alice Cooper. And I had put that on my Instagram, and that got a lot of attention. And I thought that was fun, but I had a day job and kids to raise, right? So on January 12th, I go for the follow-up, and I tell the doctor, I'm like, it's gone, because it had changed. And I couldn't even find it. And she said, no, now we can see it. And on that mammogram and on that ultrasound, there it was, the size of a pea and black and round. Then it was the standard, but to feel it, it wasn't. So there it was. And she said, I have seen a lot of cancer. This probably should come out. It is documented in my medical record that she said probably. So I went home that night and I thought, I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'd never had surgery, even though I had 2 kids. I'd never had surgery. I'd never spent the night in a hospital or anything, which I didn't have to do with this anyway. But so the painting was hanging next to my bed, and I went to bed that night and it woke me up. And then it woke me up 3 nights in a row. And on the 3rd night, again, I was like pushed forward, and this time my head was turned to face the painting. And I said, okay, I'll have the surgery. Stop waking me up. And I said it just like that. And then I just went back to sleep. And I called the doctor the next day and I said, I'll have the surgery. She scheduled it. So January 20th, she scheduled, I had my surgery. Piece of cake. Went in, my son dropped me off at the hospital. I went in, did my surgery. He picked me up. I came home. I thought it was done. I didn't think it was anything. And I think I probably said the C word a couple more times than I meant to, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so then January 22nd, I'm in the comfort of my home, recovering in my pajamas with my teenage daughter next to me. And I get a call. And it's the doctor. And I thought, I even told my daughter, I was like, oh, this is going to be good news, because if it was bad, they wouldn't call me. They'd call me into the office. Well, I was wrong. So she called and said, I am so sorry, but that was stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma, and you have to have a second surgery. It was the C word. And I joined the Pink Club right then, right? So I was very stressed out by that. And this is the part where art really, truly saves my life. Ready? All right, so that was the 22nd of January, 2016. The 29th of January, I lose my job. I walk out of my former employer's place with a box of my things in my hand and an ice pack on me. And they laid me off due to budget cuts, right? So anyway, I go on with my life. I'm a warrior. Here we go. And I go home and I cry for 3 days. And then I'm like, what are you going to do about it? So I have the second surgery, and that was February 10th. That did not go so well. So I had a reaction to the anesthesia. It almost killed me, and I woke up during the surgery. I fought them. I infected the area. They were clearing my margins, and they were checking my lymph nodes in this surgery. I really struggled to wake up out of anesthesia, and it took them 16 minutes to intubate me. This is important. And then after that, it was just trauma, so much PTSD. So the art was really helping me with my PTSD and through that pain, that mental pain, because at this point I had a little brain damage for a while where I couldn't feel outward pain. So because of the deprivation of oxygen. So I go back for the follow-up appointment about that surgery, and this is where all this ties together. The doctor said, I am so glad you had the surgery because your tumor growth rate was 60%, almost 60%. 20 is considered high. You would have been dead by Christmas. And I thank God that my little Luna chick, as I call her painting, kept me alive. I later changed her and put some color on her, redid the painting, and now I post monthly to remind women to do those self-exams, that it saved my life. So that is how art saved my life. A lot more happened that year after that. My mother passed away, and then my father passed away a few years later, and it was just like, boy, if you want to get your wishbone replaced with a titanium steel backbone, this is how I did it, right? But art was there all along. Art enabled me to donate to charities and to give gifts to people who needed them to make their day. And all I've ever wanted to do with this gift that I was truly given, the gift of life, is every day I promise myself to make sure that I do everything in my power to make that day the most special day, as though I never get another one. That's one thing. And it's my hopes with this channel is to inspire you, to entertain you, because this is not a produced video like the other videos I show, and to educate you. So on that note, thank you for listening. It's about 13 minutes right now, so I'll let you go. And I hope you enjoy the channel, subscribe, and I really appreciate you all being part of my life. It's time for me to get to work. All right.